Welcome to 42, Two Souls, One Journey, a rare and unedited look into our lives as humans. Based on the 21 grams experiment by Dr. Duncan MacDougall, who concluded that the human soul weighs 21 grams. On this videocast, we explore that no matter what our lives look like on paper, our souls journey similarly. Guys, in this episode, we're speaking with the one person who I referred to as my best friend growing up. She's always allowed me to be me. She let me play with her Barbie dolls when I was younger, and when I got older, I got to wear all her clothing. I also got to wear her wedding dress down Pride. It was amazing. She's the one person I can easily share my deepest, darkest stories with. She has resting bitch face, but she's got the most kindest, warming heart. She's funny as F. She's my younger sister, and let me emphasize younger. Salimah Kamani-Badhan, hello!
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah, I feel like you were on my top 5 people to do at the very beginning, and then your life is so busy right now. Or is it
Yes.
that I was like, okay, so this is exciting. I feel like I've been waiting for this moment to happen because I think people see you and I, like people who know us as siblings, they look at us and they're like, oh my God, those guys are so connected. They understand each other. They are so one. But I don't think
Right.
this is an opportunity for us to sort of show that. So a lot of stuff that's happened in the back end that's
Yeah,
gotten
for
us
sure.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, out of everybody I know as an adult right now, you're probably the one person that has known me the longest because you
Yeah.
birth. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
nice to put that out there in the podcast world for me. Yeah.
I'm excited to do this with you, Shefudin.
Yeah, me too.
Shefudin. Shefudin.
Salute. Salute.
Shefudin.
That's our cheer
That's
for
my
each other.
yes.
Yeah.
It is. And it's when I do that, it actually brings me a lot of joy.
Me too, because I
It
feel like
does.
there's a movement that has to happen with it. It just can't
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Like it pumps me up to
Yeah.
cheer you on for your day. So I love doing it.
Yay. And I love, like, we'll talk about it further, but I love having you do it for me for so many years of my life.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our first meeting. So I have a very clear memory of when I met you for the first time in my life.
Uh-huh.
I think I shared that at your wedding. It was like, so before meeting you, I was on the phone with your mom and dad, and they had just said you had arrived, like you were
Uh,
born.
right.
And I think in the conversation they were asking, they're like, "Oh, what should we name the baby? What should we name the baby?" And 100% is already predetermined. But my dad kept whispering in my ear,
Yeah.
"Salima, say Salima," and I was like, "Salima," and that's what they named you. And
Yeah.
there's something like, and so when I remember meeting you, being like, "Oh my God, I've named this human." I like there was such an instant connection to who you were because you were mine. I named you.
Yeah.
It's this like overwhelming like I don't know, like there's a connection before I even got to meet you,
Right.
which I think is very smart for my parents to do.
For
But I also,
sure.
yeah, but I also found out that the exact same thing with Shemaz.
Oh,
So, but I didn't find out until like in our 30s or 40s. Like it
right.
took a while to come there, but I was like, oh, and I think like I've always had that with you, where I'm like, this is the person I named. Like this is my sister. Like there's been such a like we are like I not belong can sound so archaic, but like you were mine, like you were, like
Yeah, we were a part of each other.
yeah, and I feel like
Yeah, definitely.
I associated that very first day that I got to meet. And I remember like seeing a little angel in bed in this
Oh, how
baby
sweet.
crib. Like you were tiny, but dressed all in white. Um, you were fair as like you were really like the bed was white. You looked like a little angel, honestly. I remember seeing it. I think I wanted to touch you or carry you, and your mom was there.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I did or not, but I remember like you were my toy, like you because you were so tiny. I was like, oh, this is mine. Can I carry it? And I feel like I got an option. Like your mom, like I got to carry you at that moment, but I don't remember that for sure. It just
Yeah,
sounds like
yeah.
something that she would let me do.
Yeah, no, it does, for sure. I
Yeah,
think she would have too, yeah.
yeah. So that's my first memory of you.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Um, my first I would say my first vivid memory of you is do you remember when in Jamaat Khana my leg got run over
Yes. Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was in a cast? I think I was like 3 or something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like 3. I think I was 3.
Right.
And I had come home and I was just I mean, I didn't understand what had happened. I have a cast, I couldn't walk, like, I was crying because I was in pain, like, And I didn't understand this new life, that I had to start living in this cast, that I was not mobile.
Right.
And I just remember you being so kind, like just, coming to play with me, whereas I wouldn't have to come to you.
Right.
Um, I remember also there was, so that was one. And then there was another one where, this is after the cast, and Bappa had come home and he brought a motorcycle. Do you remember this? It was a red motor, like a, I guess, battery operated
Yeah,
motorcycle.
like a car. Yeah, yeah, toy. Yeah.
Yeah, like a toy, like a life size one for a
Right.
toddler. And he brought it for me, and I was just scared to get on it. And you were like, "Don't be scared." And you got on it, and you were like teaching me how to ride it. And I was just like, I remember this. I vividly remember in park, like where we lived. I forget what it's called now.
Rajcourt Flats.
Rajcourt Flat. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because there's like that roundabout, right?
Yeah.
With the rocks in the middle and the parking was in the middle. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, like, everyone's trying to get me on this motorcycle, and I was very shy as a child, as scared of everything, like every single thing. That was me. But you, in that moment, and mostly and all throughout life, I think you've pushed me to just try it, like just do it. What's the worst that could happen? You don't like it? Okay, you don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, the first um, full memory I have of you is that red motorcycle and helping me get on there.
Yeah.
But that's literally what you've been to me in my life, is helping me get on to new things and try new things for the
Right.
first time, even though I'm so scared to do it. But you're just like, just do it. Let's just see what happens. Like, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's interesting that like those are the two memories, 'cause I remember those very clearly, and I feel like for the podcasters, like I don't know if I've clarified with Farah or not, but like Salima and I are first cousins on both sides. Her mom and dad. My mom's sister is married to my dad's brother, so Salima is Nazir and Gulzar's child. I'm Kamala and Nassim's child. So we talk about our parents as two different sets because they are. Uh,
Yeah.
on paper, but we all grew up under one household with our grandmother, and I feel like our parents shared us. Like I think for when you were born, until you came to Canada, people thought you were
Yeah.
my mom's child, and then in Canada, everybody thought I was Gulsar's child until we got to a point where
Yeah.
we lived in a separate house and then we had to explain it to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. Like our moms are sisters, our dads are brothers.
yeah,
And even, growing up, like my introduction to you was my brother. It was never my
yeah,
cousin. So that's all I ever know. That's
yeah.
all I ever knew. And I'm so happy for it, because I don't see it any other way. Like if someone were to call you my cousin, I'd be like, no.
I think that's happened to us in Kanye once or twice. Where someone's like, "Oh, that's your cousin," and we were like, "No," but I mean they're right,
Yeah.
but we were like, "No," and we don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that way at all, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's personal, right? Like I don't, like, that's not what I want out there in the world. You're not my cousin, you're my brother. So
Yeah. And it's so funny,
yeah.
like I also refer to you as like not just my family, but also my chosen family. Like you are a family member I would choose to be friends with. And I always say I'm so grateful that God gave me a friend and a best friend with my sister. Uh,
Oh, sweet.
yeah. So anyways, I just wanted the podcasters to know what the different like when we talk about two separate parents, that's what it means. Just so that
Yeah.
they don't get confused as we go on. Um, so, one thing you are great about, and I've always done this about you, is that you have this mentality of like, what's mine is ours, and everything comes out in the wash at the end.
Yeah.
So the example is like, I got to play with the Barbie dolls when I was younger. Like you, so I remember coming from Nairobi to Canada, you had already arrived,
Mhm.
um, and like I didn't think I was gay or anything at that point. I didn't have like there was no label around that. I was definitely more creative, more feminine, and I did play with girls and dolls in Nairobi. But in Canada, it was a different, like, that kind of stuff boxed me into a gay category, right? So I could never go to school and talk about this to people because they were like, oh, then you're gay.
Right.
And that was bad back then as a kid. Um,
Mhm.
but you were so happy to share everything that you had. Like, when we came from Canada, you were like, great, here are all my toys. Here's everything. You were probably 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
you were like
5.
5 or 6, and you were like the moment we arrived, you're like you guys came to pick us at the airport, and then you were like, we got home, and you're like, oh, my toys are yours, and you had like nothing, but you were so happy to share.
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment? Like you're
I
still that
remember
person?
I remember sharing my toys with you for sure.
Yeah,
Um, Also because, I never liked being alone.
Okay.
So sharing was my way of making sure that I wasn't alone. I had someone to play with or with me. Even like, we don't necessarily have to talk to each other. We just have to be in the same space, right? And the other thing also is I never saw anything, I guess, wrong
Yeah.
with you playing dolls. Like we were just playing dolls. Like it was so innocent, as it should be, I think, right? So, if like my son Rumi, he loves cars, but if I were to, if he saw a doll and he gravitated towards it, then it wouldn't be a thing. And I think that's because growing up with you, that everything was fair game. There wasn't a label on anything.
Right.
This is a boy thing, this is a girl thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, it was never like that. And I appreciate that as well. Like growing up with you, that there were no labels on anything. Like the world was an opportunity that was, like it was up to us to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't actually remember giving you all my toys, but I mean, I remember sharing in the sense to make sure that, everyone at least had something. Like there wasn't something like that, no one was left without anything, right?
Yeah. That's so
So
fun. Like, so you definitely, maybe, I don't know if you gave them to me, maybe you were like letting me share them, but you were definitely like, here, like, again, what's mine is yours. And as we got
yeah,
older, I realized it's like it all comes out of the wash. There was never like an equal, like we never have to balance our checkbooks with each other.
yes,
Um,
that's true.
and like when you talk about the sharing thing, I like that's so so my dad, right? It's like
Yeah,
every child. It's a very Kamani thing. Every child gets an equal share of everything, whatever it is. It's an
yes,
equal share.
yeah,
And it's exactly like you're like that as an adult. I am not like that as an adult. I feel like
yes.
like I always pretend like I'm an only child. I'm quite happy to like get my own stuff and like be like, this is mine, and
Hmm.
like fight. Like I feel like in our foursome of kids, I'm always
Yeah,
talking about how like the early bird gets the worm. You have to like fight to get the best thing. You don't have that mentality at all. You are like everybody will get an equal share, and you'll get
yeah,
what you deserve.
yeah. That's literally it.
Yeah,
You'll get what you deserve.
yeah. And
So
in the kind way, not in like that mean way. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah. Do you
I
like?
totally believe that even now.
Yeah, like and you still do that with all our nieces and nephews as well. Like it's such a right. Everybody gets a fair share of you. Everybody gets a fair share. Like if someone's getting a toy, everybody gets something equal across the board.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to like. I guess for me, it's like we're like it's the one thing we're really different in, right? It's the one thing that like, and I was like, I don't know where mine. Like I'm trying to pinpoint where mine came from and where you like
Yeah.
where did this learning come from? Because this isn't like behavior that like we were taught this behavior or we saw this behavior
Mm.
in our households. But yours are very clear. Like when you say things, I'm like, yeah, this is the adults we got it from. When I say things, I'm like, who are these adults that I got this from? Like I think I made some of this stuff up. But, uh,
I think also like you left the house a lot earlier than I did, right?
right.
So I was around that a lot longer.
Yeah.
Living with Ma a lot longer as well. Um, she was a big catalyst in, fairness, like, okay, like even down to, birthdays or Kashali money or what,
Yeah.
whatever that was, like she
Right.
would always say, because I used to be her banker, right? So she
Right.
would be like, okay, well, this is how much money I need you to get for me from the bank. And then you need to write me, 4 envelopes and everyone gets the same amount in each one. So I think through practice and habit as from her, through her,
Right.
is
Right.
probably where I picked up that habit.
Oh, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she was very equal about everything. Like everybody got
Yeah.
$25 on their birthday kushal. Like no matter how old you were, how rich you got, like that was the amount you got, no matter what,
Yeah.
and no matter how old you were. Yeah. So I guess like I wonder because like you were a girl and like I feel like there's always like there's a competition within the boys all the time, or there's a perceived competition with the boys all the time. Like I don't
Mhm.
know. Like I'm trying to think about like I wonder something that like like it was a competition between me and Shemez, but I just put it with everybody.
Yeah.
And like because you were the first and only girl for a long time in our household. So no matter
Yeah.
like you got one like if we didn't get anything, you got it for sure. Like there's always that like
Yes.
same was getting it no matter what. And I think rightfully so because you would equally divide it later.
Well,
I
yeah,
wouldn't have. Yeah.
it's, yeah, I don't remember doing those things.
Yeah.
I think just because it's a part of me and I just do them and they're not like, it's not an awareness thing for me. It's just a part of me, if that makes sense.
100%, yeah. Like,
And even with, like, I think you're right. Like you and Shemaz are close in age. And then I came 5 years later and I was a girl. So,
yeah,
inherently there was a difference. No, again, not in a bad way.
no.
And then Farah came even later, like almost 8 years later, right? So she had her own, I guess, glory time. I had my own, and then you and Shemaz kind of had to share, right?
Yeah. So it must have like my competitive nature comes from like with Shemaz because it's never like we don't compete on things.
No,
Um, yeah. Oh, no, well,
no,
thanks for solving that though. Like I feel like I was like, why have I my behaviors are so middle child, I guess.
yeah. And I think also, like, even if there was a competition, it's, because we love each other so much, it doesn't matter because the winner is still in the family.
Uh,
Like that's how I see it. That
yeah,
it doesn't matter if if the three or four of us are racing
yeah,
and I'm at the bottom, it doesn't matter. The trophy still came home. So
yeah. Meanwhile, I'm like the trophy has to come home with me
I know,
specifically.
I know. Because I now that I'm thinking, like, if I won it, I'd be like, here you go. You
Yeah.
can take it home. Yeah. Like,
I mean, I feel like it's like it must be some sort of like a gender thing we have to figure out in our family because there's got like like there's got to be something that the boys got to get away with things the girls didn't, and you got so much of mine, your mom, like you're so
yeah.
much, you so like so many elements of who you are
Yeah.
them, and it's been like that from the get go. Like I feel like since you were
Really?
one, yeah, like the one like the benefit I have of knowing you for so long is that from the get go, you were always this person. Like I think what you say shy and quiet as a kid, you were just like you're just conscious of what was happening around you. You were making sure that everybody had it was equal on stuff. You thought with kindness, and I think that was from the get go about you. So
Mhm.
I think what you saw as shyness and like quietness for me was more like a consciousness. Like you were always like yours. Wait, like your soul was always a lot older than your body was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, I think now that you bring it up, like you're right. I didn't see you as shy and quiet. I would say like one of my crew members. You would always like we would always go and do things together.
Yeah.
But you're right though. Like you were never. I think like you had three friends. Like you were very like this is my small circle. I'm keeping it small, and you're quite content with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And w- um, you know, growing up, like, again, being the girl, our parents were quite strict, right? Like I wasn't able to go anywhere on my own. I
Right.
couldn't do anything really on my own. Like the freedoms that Farah experienced, I never had that,
Right.
right? Especially at the age that she got them.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things in my life that that you have single-handedly enhanced is experiencing life. Like you, even though I was so much younger than you, you never held back. You always took me with you. You always, maybe I was, and you never said it, but you never made me feel like I was a burden coming with you, wherever, even if I didn't have anything to do with it, like camp meeting. Like I just wanted to get out of the house. Like
Right.
I had nothing to do there. I couldn't contribute, but I was out of the house. I was experiencing something different. So I love you and thank you for that as well.
Oh, thank you. I never thought it was a burden. I always thought like you were always a crew member for me. Like whoever my
Yeah.
crew was, you were like the plus one no matter what. Because like I said, like for me it was like God gave me my sister and a best friend and one. And so
Yeah.
I never like I think of like all the stuff we did as kids or as like teenagers. You're in every one of my photographs at any base jump, like any event where I'm like go dancing or doing anything new and exciting. You were always in all of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think because I always just saw you as a crew member. Like you were my posse.
It was,
Yeah.
it's funny you say those things because I would ask my mom, and my mom would always say that, like after you came out and she knew and whatever, and as you know that, both moms, like they loved you unconditional. They love you unconditionally anyway, regardless of
Right.
what label or whatever, right? Like, and one of the things that my mom always told me when she did find out, she said, the biggest thing you could do for him is always support him. And so she always made it very clear that, whatever you do,
Right.
to be there for you, to let you know that it doesn't matter, that, we love you anyway.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for
So
sharing, telling me where that came from.
yeah, that was one of the biggest things where she's like, he's an amazing child, and whatever he has or got or didn't get, the parents are one thing, but you're his sister. And he always has to know that you're his sister, you're in his corner no matter what.
Well, thank you
So,
for.
yeah, and it's like, it's not a stretch for me. I'm just saying that was her words of wisdom,
Yeah.
and I appreciated them for sure. Like, I live by them, as you've mentioned,
Right.
but it's not a burden. I love doing it. I love supporting you. I love, any of your new adventures, because you're way more adventurous than I am. I love hearing about it. I love, seeing your potential, seeing what you do, because, like, one, it's in the family. Like, it's a sense of pride for me to say
Right.
it's my brother. Like, look at what my brother did, right? Like,
Right.
your art gallery, like, whatever it is, I love it. Like, your
Yeah.
performances, whatever. But that was one of the things that my mom taught me, that, no matter what, you never know in that moment how much it means to that person,
Yeah.
and it really doesn't cost you a thing. So
Oh my
do it.
God, I love that that came from her because that's so epitomizes
Yeah.
who she is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think you hit on like three other things within that whole thing. It was like I think like
Yeah.
this idea of like coming out is something I want to talk to you about because I have a very specific interaction, and then this story actually really helps out. So that, and then this idea that like we did things together as kids, right? And like
Yeah.
um, so let me break those down. I think it's probably a lot easier. So
Yeah.
the doing things as kids, like so I have this thing where I feel like your life was always laid out for you, right? So boys versus girls, like that as much as we didn't think, no, there was definitely a disparity in our family, right? Like
Yes.
you were like you were part of my posse, but I got to do so much more things, and I was allowed to do so much more things, like go out in the sun. You weren't allowed to do some of those things.
Yeah.
So for me, like, so I know, like, growing up, I was like, I have to make sure that Salimah comes with me anywhere. Like, we go to Montreal, we do this, we do that. Salimah's coming because one, I'm the safe person she can go with. Two,
Yeah.
she's part of my policy, and then yes, and she has to experience these things that I thought were important for you.
Yeah.
So like, did you think that your life was laid out for you at our house? Because I in my story, I always have like, Selena's life was laid out for her. She knew she had to graduate, work, marriage, family, kids. That was it. Like it was almost like this was your cookie cutter. Um, I don't know what the right word is, but like this is what you had to do and you had to follow. And because you were because I mean, all of us are just good kids. We just want to make our parents happy. We did that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yes, like, again, typically that's what you do. You go to school, you meet somebody, you fall in love, you get married, and then, you work, and then you get married, whatever that is, and you start a family.
Right.
And
In a
that,
very heteronormative form. Like in a very,
yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And and the thing is, yes, that I think those were expectations of me, because that's what happened with our parents. Like,
Right.
that was the story of your parents, that was the story of my parents, same with Ma, right?
Yeah.
um but for me, like, that was also something I wanted for myself. So while it was prescribed, I don't think I was ever shoved into it.
Yeah.
It was always something that I wanted for myself as well.
That's good to know because I feel like we never talked about it, and
Yeah.
I just thought that's what it was. And I was like, again, we just did what our parents told us to do for the longest
Right.
times. And I mean, we rebel a lot more now, but like
Yeah.
until our 20s and like until our late 20s, my late 20s, we did exactly what they were told us to do, right? Like,
Yeah. And a lot of it had to do with living under their roof.
right, 100%. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Like, once we were out of there was, like, there's no control anymore, right?
yeah,
And in a way, I understand where they're coming from. My rules, my roof, my rules.
100%.
Having a child like, for myself, I understand that. But yeah, I think, like, having lived like that, I may do certain things differently with Rumi, but again, I don't know until I get there.
Right. No, I mean, I
So
think like you're already like one thing we'll talk about later is going to Carla, but this idea that like we had made a very conscious decision as this generation to not follow in the things that our parents thought they had to do. Like we were going to challenge some of the status quo stuff
yeah,
because they brought us to this country so that we can challenge the status quo stuff, right? Like they brought us to
for
get more
sure.
great opportunities. Yeah. So let's go back to coming out. So my coming out. So I
Yeah,
have this very vivid memory of so I came out at 20, which made you like a teenager at that point, like you were 15 or something.
yeah,
Um, and so my memory is I told you like you were one of the first people I told I was gay, and then you didn't talk to me for 3 days. Um, because I think you were processing, and I remember being like I wasn't hurt by it, but I was like, she just needs space. And then
Yeah.
I think those 3 days passed, and then we were best friends again. But that's how I remember it. I don't know. Is that the same recollection you have?
Well, I remember we were going for a walk somewhere. We walked, I think we were going to Fairview Mall, and we would often walk to Subway and then take the bus. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we were doing that, and that's when you told me. And I remember when you told me, I was a bit shocked, because again, there was such a negative stigma around being gay.
Right.
And also, I didn't understand it, to be completely honest. Like, I knew it was okay, instead of a boy and a girl liking each other, it was a boy and a boy.
Right.
So I knew that much, but I didn't like, what does that mean? Like, in my mind, I was just like, well, do they get married? Like, do they have kids? Like,
Right.
again, because I lived such a sheltered life a little bit, right? That I didn't know, like, there wasn't any education about it. So how do you know? Like, you don't know until someone teaches you or tells you, or I guess you could go find out for yourself. But at that time, it was so new that it wasn't anything that I even wanted to know about, if that makes sense.
100%. And I think Ellen and Will and Grace, like those had just like they were just becoming mainstream conversations, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. Like, and
And
you can Google these things.
yeah. And then when you told me, I remember, just thinking, well, is anything going to change? Like, between us, like, I got afraid that, oh, now that he's gay, like, does that mean that he doesn't like girls anymore? And I was a girl. So I think
Oh,
that's why I was so quiet. I mean, I'm just thinking back. I don't remember that we didn't talk for 3 days, but I remember that feeling of like, you saying that, oh, I'm gay, and inherently, of course, that means you like boys. But then I'm like, but I'm not a boy. So I didn't understand it, like,
yeah,
obviously. So it was so linear for me, right? Like, it was so
yeah.
innocent, like, in that point. So I think that was probably why I was quiet, because I didn't get it. I was like, well, nothing's changed. Like, he's still my brother. We still play together and go places together. Like, so what does it actually mean? Okay, like, you're gay, but what does that mean? And I think that's what probably took some time, was to figure out what it meant and if it changed anything, which it didn't. But because I didn't understand it,
Yeah.
I didn't know, right?
Yeah. Thanks for explaining what happening in your brain that day, that time. Because for me, it was very
Yeah.
like I told one of my best friends, then and she didn't talk to me. But it wasn't again for me. I was like, it's a processing thing. It's not that she hates me because
Yeah.
like I think 3 days later,
No.
and then again, everything went back to exactly the way our relationship was. Um,
Yeah. And I think I stopped, like, we didn't talk, or we didn't play together for 3 days, or whatever that was. I think because in my mind, I was like, well, I'm not a boy. Is that him telling me that he doesn't want to play with me anymore? Like,
yeah,
so, and like, I didn't have the capacity to come and ask you, because again, I didn't understand it. But I think that was it. Now that you're saying it and I'm thinking back, I'm pretty sure that was it, where I was just like, I don't know, is that what he's trying to tell me? Okay, well, I guess I'll just be over here then. And
just yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's one of those things that I like when Faiz and I talked about my coming out, and she had talked about how like there was not in that moment, but now reflect back, there was a conscious moment that happened where she's like, our relationship is going to change. Shafik's going to get new friends. He's entering a new community, so like things were going to change for me. Change for her and my relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and as a gay person, this kind of happens when like your friends get married. Sorry, I'll take that back. Even as a single person who hasn't gotten married, when your friends get married, there's something about like there's a momentary moment where your relationship changes, right? Because
Yeah.
this person is marrying somebody else that is on the same is equal with them, is journeying life with them, and you were previously the person who journeyed life with them.
Yeah.
So it's just like when Faiza mentioned that, I was like, oh, this is a good question to ask people because like I think when you met Ashok, we were like, oh, like as much as we were all Team Salima until like we were Team Salima, we'll always be Team Salima, but like at that point we were like, oh, like this is her equal who's going to make those big decisions in life
Yeah.
with her moving forward. So we don't make those anymore. And same thing happened when Jeremy came into my life, or maybe when Knives came into my life. Like like
Yeah.
I don't think we consciously think about it that way, but there is a shift that happens in our relationships,
Hmm.
and we like I don't know if we mourn them or we grieve them. I don't know what the right word is, but like I think recognizing that the shifts are happening is kind of cool.
Yeah,
But yeah,
for sure. And I think, like, when a new partner, a new person enters one of our lives, for me, it's just happiness to see that, my sibling is happy.
yeah,
I see it as an extension. I don't see it as a loss. So
yeah.
yeah, that's how but there is a change for sure, because you inherently you take a step back, right? Because now there's somebody else for you to lean on.
100%. I think there's like I know for me, until I brought
Mhm.
that up, I mean, it is still a loss, but it's like the roles change, right? Like
Yeah,
you no longer have to do some of these things, um, like the other person will carry your drag bag for you, or like you will some conversations you will have with you, some conversations I'll have with them.
yeah,
But while when we were younger, all conversations were with you. So like you were my processing person, you were the person I'd go and be like, here's a tough conversation, and your perspective of kindness and consciousness would be always be so important. Um,
mm,
Also, like you should like just when you and Ashoka are doing your home stuff, it makes no sense for you to come to any of us because you guys are in it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
impacts us, like, it doesn't impact you guys, so
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I feel like that was a, anyways, that was just an interesting thing, and wanted to bring that up with like the pride stuff, right? Because while I don't think I saw a change, but if I look back now, of course there was like all my almost my half my friend circle group shifted. Like I went from this like very heterosexual Kanye going people to all these gay fun bar people,
Yeah.
who were also Kanye going people, but like a whole new community was introduced to me, and I did have
Mm,
some. I don't know if I had loss, but there was a integration, but that could mean loss of other people, right? So
yeah,
yeah, I'm glad that that didn't happen. Oh, you didn't feel like that happened on your end?
yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. So we were just talking about so the laid out part. So one of the things that I remember doing as kids that was so great, and I think that talks really big about our relationship, was that we were always brutally. We had made a commitment. I don't know when was to be like you were the one person in our family was in cahoots with. Like you'd know all the truths. I would never lie to you. Like you'd be the first person I would tell when I started doing drag or when I was kissing a boy or anything in my life. My
Mhm.
addiction. Also, like I think you're still like my power of attorney for everything, and all my stuff is coming to you. Um, but also like when sneaking out of the house, like when you had snuck out of the house at 16,
Yeah,
I was the only one that knew, and I feel like I don't remember when we made that pact, but it was like 100% a pact. I remember we talked about it, we made that decision, and until I was 39 or something, I did not change that decision. And then I was like, wait, Selima's got other things going on in her life, and I can like, she doesn't always have to be my like,
yeah, I don't remember having that conversation either, but I do remember, exactly what you said, where, we were just that person for each other, that, we could, if we had to cover a truth or whatever, a white lie or whatever, because we were gonna get into trouble as kids, then that was fine, but the one person we didn't lie to was each other. And it's funny you say that, because I actually said that to Farah once, and I told her, I said, you can do you will make bad choices in your life. That's just part of being human. You will make a mistake, you will make a bad choice. You will be in a pickle, like where you don't know what to do, and you're just like, "Oh my God, if mom and dad find out, I'm gonna be in so much trouble.
right,
Who do I go to?" And I said, "Well, that's what siblings are for, but I can only be that if you're honest." So I remember she called me once, and she was at I don't remember which mall even. Like, I wanna say it was so far and obscure, like Dufferin Mall or something, like just a random mall, not even a big one like Eaton Center
right,
or Yorkdale or something. Like, it was just something, I don't even remember where it was, and she said she went there with her friend one day in high school,
yeah,
and her friend left her there and went home, and she had no way to get home. And so she called me and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm here at this mall." And I like, again, it was like one of these small little malls that you don't even think about.
right,
And I was like, "Where is that?" And I had to figure it out and Google it. And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to come and pick you up. Don't go anywhere." And she was in tears, like, what did I do? I made a bad choice. Right. And then I went to get her and she's like, "Oh my God." And I remember her actually saying it, that, you said you wouldn't get mad as long as I told you the truth. And you did it. You didn't get mad and you came
yeah,
to get me. So I think that bond, or that trust, and also following through with what you're going to say,
right,
is so important. Like, it's
yeah,
one thing to say it, and then when that person, is in a weak moment, and you don't and instead
yes,
of kicking them when they're down, you have to help them up.
yeah,
That, I think, shows character. And also I think that's why we have such a bond, because, we've both made some bad choices,
right,
but we've never pointed the finger at each other saying, "I told you so."
right,
Or, I told you you should have done this, or you could have done better. Like, it was never like that. It was just like, "Okay, let's just pick ourselves up, we're gonna dust it off, we're gonna make sure that we're better for the next time and move on.
Yeah. That's so, like, you're right. Like, I never, like, I don't remember that moment that we had just made that decision. And I don't, like, that's how a relationship works. That, like,
Yeah,
specifically me and you, like, I don't, Far and I don't have that kind of relationship. Shemaz and I don't have that kind of relationship. It's very specific to you and I.
yeah,
'Cause like, even, like, I have a very clear memory of, like, um, after your divorce, your ex was getting married, and I, stupid enough, was like, ha ha ha, look what a friend showed me for phases when you're married, and you were sad about it. Like, you had emotions about it, and I remember being like, you've got 3 days to get over this. Like, it was such a, like, here's your grieving time, but I want you to be done at this time. And then I remember having to
yeah.
step back and be like, oh my god, let her have her feelings. Like, it was such a
Mm,
big moment in your life. Like, your divorce was such a big, so much had crumbled for you at that point,
yes.
and you were doing such great rebuilding.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, it was just like, it was such a, like, I feel like that's always our standard answer. You're like, okay, I'm here. What do you need?
Yeah,
Let's get you out of this. But then you have, like, I'll give you 4 days. Get, like, let's pick up and get going. And, like, we were never about, like, sit in your feelings, cry as long as you want.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Even, even with my divorce, yes, it was, pivotal, painful time in my life.
Yeah.
But I think, not only was I getting divorced, but I was also depressed. Like I had left my community, everything that I ever knew, Toronto, and I moved to Calgary. I had no friends. I had no mode of transportation to myself, so I was very limited in my mobility to get out.
Right.
The bus from where we lived in Calgary came like once every 45 minutes, and it was like a 20-minute walk to get to the bus stop.
In the
So it
middle of
was,
winter. Right.
yeah, like it was just not accessible. Like it wasn't as accessible as I was used to here in Toronto.
Right.
I had my own car. I had a bus stop like right outside where we used to live. So these things were conveniences, I guess, that I'd gotten used to. And then when we got to Calgary, I couldn't find a job because we were in a recession. Um, and I was so isolated. I had no friends, no family, no community. And so when I came back, there was a few things that I was dealing with, right? Like my divorce, failed marriage, um, you know, reconnecting with all my friends because I was in such depression that I lost contact with them. So now I was, a bit of a loner again.
Yeah.
And I had to, figure it out. Like I had no job, so I had to start again from scratch. And it was like complete life rebuilding at that time. And I would say it took about a couple of years to do.
Oh, 100%. I think, like, from this perspective, like, for me, that was such a big part of you. Like, you were two different people. Like, the person who went into that and came out of that was two different people. And also, like, like, I got to come to Calgary. Like, I got to bring you back from Calgary, and I remember, like, there was
Yeah.
something about that moment was so real. Like, we could never write that script. We could have never imagined what it would turn out to be like. It was such a
Yeah.
raw human moment.
Yes.
Um, like, and the plane ride was like they were demystifying that whole thing. Like, we were getting on the plane with your wedding dress and everything you had taken to Calgary with you.
Yeah. It's
And
like 8 suitcases or something. Do you
yeah,
remember? Yeah.
and I just remember, like, for me, it was like who you were prior to that and who you became after that were two different people. So for me, like, it was such a pivotal part of your life for me.
Yeah.
I feel like you were still a kid at that point, and then, like, you womaned up so hard right after that. Like, you were like,
Mhm.
okay, here's the things that I didn't know about the depression part. That's new for me to hear. But,
Yeah.
like, you were like, I am not going to be, whatever mistakes, whatever happened here, you were never repeating them, and you've never repeated them. Like, you made such a conscious effort of being a better human being,
Yeah.
in every part of your life, and with everyone in your life.
I
Um,
when divorce happens, there's such a stigma around it, right?
right,
And maybe less so now, but back then, and I guess with each passing year, it becomes less and less.
right.
But I didn't want that to be defining for me.
Mm-hmm,
I knew how our community, how our elders talked about, divorce.
mm-hmm,
And even if, like, for me, it was for everyone that does it is for the right reasons. But unless you're in it, again, you don't understand it, right? Because you've never been through it. And I was so conscious about changing that narrative for when people saw me. I didn't want them to see me with pity. I didn't want them to be like, oh, poor girl, she's divorced. Like, what, I hope she makes it in life. Like, this whole pity party that goes around this divorced, especially around women, right?
right, right.
Um, So I didn't want that for myself, and I just made an effort, like, to myself, like a promise to myself that I wasn't gonna let it define me. And, this was my chance to be better than that.
Mm.
And that's kind of what I did. I mean, of course, there were lots of downs, more downs than ups along the way, which you're a big part of. But I just had to do it. I just had to get back up on the saddle because it was, like you said, such a defining moment. Either I'm going to let it define me,
Yeah.
or I'm going to let it make me better.
Yeah. For me, like I feel like when my rock bottom hit in my addiction, like that loss of
Mhm.
everything, like I remember being like, for me, like you were I was like, oh, like it wasn't the same thing. Like there was still a loss of all these things, but you picked yourself up
Yeah,
and chose to be that. And I was like, I have a model in front of me who did that. Like I knew
yeah,
somebody who shared honestly about what was happening, where they were. And so I remember like for me, that's such a pivotal point in my life right now. But that was a similar fact where I was like, oh, everything's gone. But I was like, oh, wait, Salima's done this before. I know somebody who's done it. I have the people and the support to get out.
yeah,
So yeah, for me, that was just a very interesting parallel in our lives that I never thought we would ever have because I didn't think I was ever going to get married or divorced. But I thought I was going to get married and divorced, but I didn't think. But the
yeah.
rock bottom really, like like every human in the world has that moment in their lives. Like even no matter how rich you are, how poor you are, where you live, that everybody has that moment that they have to pick everything back up again and say, I'm not going to let this define me and move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I think you did such a great job. I remember
Thank you.
like so humble. It's like who people thought of you were before that would never think of you after that because I think you opened up yourself. You were vulnerable. You opened yourself up to so many people.
Hmm.
Like you took chances, like things that I would have never done.
Hmm.
Like you were really happy to put yourself out there and say, I don't care. I'll work at McDonald's, but as long as I'm paying my bills and I have what's the right word? Like you were doing the right thing at the baseline. I don't know. There's a word for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
When I worked at Future Shop, I think that was pivotal for me too because I again because I became such an introvert like I was when I was so little.
Yeah.
And Future Shop, because it's so social, and I made so many great friends there, Jessica, as you know,
Right.
it really brought me out of my shell and it really showed me the possibility of who I could be in a social setting. Like I didn't always have to be the quiet person.
Yeah.
It was okay to talk. People enjoyed my company, which I wasn't sure that happened before. Because like I said, the depression, the divorce did such a number on my confidence
Right.
that I wasn't sure that people wanted me to be around, or if they did, should I say something? Like did they actually want to get to know me?
Right.
Um, so yeah, Future Shop was a huge catalyst in bringing me back up because of the environment that it created. I was around people my age. I made new friends. It taught me how to socialize, not be so scared, not be so shy.
Right.
So that yeah, a lot of things came out of that.
That's so interesting. Like you're right. Like I think, but you consciously made like an effort to go into Future Shop. Like you, like I said, like the cinema before that and the cinema after. Like you made. It's almost like you were like, this is going to be fearful. I'm going to pick that. Like you picked your fears and said you're going to go forward and come out the other end a different having experienced that stuff. Like so there were no longer
But
fears.
but that came from you. You were always the
No.
one that, yeah, like that's what I'm saying. You always pushed me to take the chance. Like you were always, and even now, you're consistently saying, just try it.
Right.
Like even when I went on online dating app, I remember I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Like people are gonna judge. And again, back then, like it was all this judgy stuff, like, oh, she can't find someone now, she needs an app to find someone, whatever. And I was, caught up in that. But
Right.
you were just like, who gives a shit? Like, just do it. Like, write your profile. It'll help you learn about who you are now and what you want. And
Okay.
I very vividly remember you saying that fill out your profile, even if you don't hit submit.
Right.
You yourself it's an exercise for you to know what you want now
Right.
as you answer those questions. You probably don't even remember this.
No, like I feel like
Yeah, I can see on your
I
face.
was like,
But I remember you saying that, like, go on these websites, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, but it's
yeah,
learning for yourself as to who the new you is.
yeah,
And then you're like, even if you press submit and you post it, or, your profile gets posted or whatever, and you're like, okay, so what if someone says hi to you? You say hi back. What's like, you have zero, zero, zero to lose. Like, That person could be living across the street and leaving from their house, and you could be leaving from your house, and you wouldn't even know it was that person. You have zero to lose. I remember this conversation so vividly, and you're like, you have nothing to lose. Do you want me to do this with you? Let's do it together. And I was just like, oh my God, like he's right. Like
Right.
you got my emotions to this point where I was just like, he's right. I'm gonna do it right now. And I did. And it was one of the best things I did. I think it was a very pivotal time in my life to understand that I'm not the person
Yeah.
that everybody else thinks I am. I'm not the person that I thought I was.
Yeah.
Because when you hear it, when you hear something so much, you start to believe it, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
From outside, right? Like you start
Yeah.
to believe it, whereas it might not be who you are or what you feel or think inside.
Yeah.
So when you do those, kinds of exercises, as silly as it was, and filling out an online dating thing, that
Right.
I actually had a moment to actually sit down and ask myself those questions of what kind of person do I want in my life?
Yeah.
What do I want in like what are my hobbies? No one had asked me that in like years, and no one actually does. Like when was the last time someone asked you that? Like it doesn't
No.
happen.
Not since you were 10 or something. Like nobody ever.
Yeah.
As an adult, that's not a question people ask you.
Yeah. And even I remember filling that out and I'm like, hobbies? Like what is that even? Like adults have hobbies? Like what does that mean? Like I don't go bike riding. Like what is this? So it was such a shift in a dynamic on how you start thinking about yourself
Yeah.
and this new world that you're in, because it's so evolved, right? Like it's moving forward all the time. So
Well, that's like, thank you for saying that. Because I think like, people are always creating is my thing. I love creating new things. Like I love jumping in
yeah,
like 2 feet first. They don't, that doesn't always work in my favor. But like kids don't jump 2 feet first when you're having drugs. Do some research. That's never my that was never my thing, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's something that has helped me create stuff that's really great. Like Velvet Bag, and all the good stuff came out of that. But I
yeah.
didn't realize I'm the one that like. It sounds like me because that's how I live my life.
It is exactly how
Yeah,
you live
yeah,
your life. That is, it really is. Like if you don't see that for yourself, somebody
yeah,
watching you sees that. Somebody that knows you sees that. And that's a principle I live with my whole life that you've taught me. That if I'm trying something new, a new job, a new activity that I've never done, like, and like we went to Bali and we were doing this rice paddy walking or whatever it was. And it was so like, I want to say athletic because they were so like those pathways were so narrow.
right,
And I was so scared. And I was just like, what's the worst that could happen? I fall into one.
right.
And I'm like, if Shafiq was here, he'd be like, oh God, let's just go. Like, stop limiting yourself. And that's one of the things, like you don't know, but that's the impact that you have in my life. That whenever I feel like I'm stuck,
Right.
I always have that voice of yours in my head that just says, just do it. Like failure isn't always a bad thing. Like just
Yeah,
do it. You don't even know, like you might surprise yourself.
right.
And I have like 95% of the time I've
Right.
surprised myself.
As a business entrepreneur, that's such a big like failure is there's not failure. There's a learning lesson that comes out of it. I just like I said, I didn't
Yeah.
know I started that earlier, but I also like I think I was allowed to be this guy. Like I'm allowed to be from a kid. I'm allowed to do all these things and be this because I knew you were the backbone for some of these things, right? Like I was allowed to go out and try things out and do things out because if I failed, I could come home and Salima would be there. Salima would be like, "Here's all my toys." Like you were
Yeah.
like I always joke about like I'm the artsy kids and you're not there. You're the non-artsy kid, but you were like you have always been the foundation. Like even now, like I don't have to have a home anywhere in the world. I know you have a home. It's my home. Like
Yeah. It is.
I think who you are allowed me to be this person. So it's sort of like two sides of the same coin. Like I get to go out
Yeah.
and like from a kid, I got to go do all these things because I knew that if I failed, I would always come home to a loving people who would tell me I'm okay and take care of me and have everything else under control.
Yeah.
So thank you for being the foundation and the rock behind all that kind of stuff. And still,
Oh, oh, thanks.
yeah.
You always have a place with me wherever I am.
No, I know. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Being the only sibling who came to your baby moon, I fully know that. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I've got a safe space. Yeah, yeah. No, but thank you for being that person for me because I think like I'm allowed to jump and be creative and do all these things because one,
Yeah.
you support it, and I have your support, and two, I don't know I have anything to lose because whatever's important to me is kept safe because you're doing it.
Oh,
Because you
Okay,
are it
thanks.
and you're doing all the hard work for
Yeah.
it. So thank you. We've gone over time, but I also want to wrap up with a rapid fire question. We didn't get a
Okay.
chance to talk about Rumi. I feel like that's okay. Second podcast, we have to talk about Rumi because I feel like this new
Yeah.
human in our lives is so fascinating to me. But we really are out of time, so we'll podcast number two.
Yeah.
We'll
Let's do
talk
it.
all things. We'll talk all things Rumi.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so we'll put Rumi aside, but let's wrap up this session. So to wrap up, we're going to play a rapid fire round where I'm going to say one word or one name to you, and you respond with the first word that comes to your head. Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
They're all names, actually. They're all people's names. So, okay, here we go. Ashok,
Funny.
Gulzar,
Love.
Roshan,
Um, Life.
oh, Farah.
Dingles. That's just what I call her, but that's just the first thing that came to my mind.
It's funny. I have a whole question about like Farah and Rumi. We'll come back to in a podcast too.
Yeah.
The last name, Rumi.
Oh, he's the love of my life. And that's not one word, but that's it. He is. He's everything. Like I guess that would be the word everything.
Yeah. Well, those were it. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, people, to tune in as Salimah and I got to do this. It was really nice to have this with you because I think we've never, like, we know each other, we know each other for all our lives, but we've never asked these questions to each other or said any of these things to each
Yeah.
other. So thank you for that. And thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.